Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Somers Town Board regular meeting starting here at 7:05, Thursday, April 20th, 2023. Before we start tonight's meeting, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. He is. Enrollment should be enjoyed. Paul, rolling on out there?
Oh, he's on.
He's on Zoom.
Zooming.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, Patty, can we start off with roll call?
Yep, William J. Faulkner.
Here.
Councilman Richard D. Glinchey.
Here.
Councilman Anthony J. Sprigo.
Here.
Councilman Thomas A. Garrity Jr.
Here.
Supervisor Rob Scarano.
Here. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to open up public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Anybody here for public comment? Great. If you guys would,
I don't recognize you guys.
if you guys would come up to the podium, please, state your name, try to keep it to 3 minutes. Oh,
No,
I
you
use
guys.
that, Michael.
You're on the agenda, Mike.
Yeah, you're on the agenda. This is a public comment. But they were right behind you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Robin Anderson, 9 Cypress Lane.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. I wanted to thank you guys for all your efforts to date. The mirrors, I know, Wendy thinks that it's been a huge help for her up on press drive. Thank you. Eluding me right now. And we see the stop signs are scheduled for a public hearing in May. And I know at the planning meeting, you said Nick was awaiting the speed humps and it'll get installed.
3 of them.
3 of them at some point on arrival.
Yeah, and
Okay.
as you know, they'll be there for until fall time, just before snowfall.
Right.
It's in the-
That's
and
what
we'll
he
just
said
kind of
through
go-
November, I think,
Yep.
was the plan. Okay. So we did listen to the discussion about the speed limit reduction last week. I wasn't here, but I was really disappointed with that. You know, I heard the report from the police chief and the Bureau of Fire Prevention. But he didn't talk about any evidence-based data. It was all opinion and beliefs. The 25-mile-an-hour speed limit doesn't change traffic flow very much, but it changes perception, reaction time, and crash outcomes significantly. A person is half as likely to die if they're hit at 25 miles an hour as if they're hit at 30 miles an hour. And that's not debatable. That's a fact. The stopping distance is improved by 45 feet or 23%, meaning many crashes can be avoided altogether if you can stop for them. In the last meeting, the Bureau of Fire Prevention memo, it noted that reducing the speed limit would decrease response time for blue light vehicles, which are apparently not allowed to exceed the speed limit like other emergency response vehicles. So Shenorock is 1.9 miles from end to end. If you go from 118 to 202, if a blue light vehicle drove through the entire community from end to end at 30 miles an hour, it takes them 3 minutes and 48 seconds to get through. If they drove through at 25 miles an hour, it would take 4 minutes and 30 seconds. It's a difference of 42 seconds. And if you're talking about reducing the speed limit, saving lives, I don't know that that's a significant difference. And that's certainly something that needs to be considered. It doesn't seem like a huge difference. And none of us really believe the blue light guys are following the speed limit anyway, do we? I've seen them if they're not. And that's okay. The police wouldn't ticket them anyway. I also think somebody, I can't remember who said that people speeding through Shenorock are residents. I'm not sure why people think that or what data we have to support that or what difference it makes. If you're speeding through Shenorock, you're speeding through Shenorock. It doesn't matter where you live, right? And then in the memo from the fire department, it said if the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit is not being obeyed, the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit will not either. And that was seen as a reason to not support the reduction in the speed limit in the memo that was published. That's just ridiculous. Should we just eliminate speed limits altogether if people don't follow them? Should we eliminate the drinking age? Because we all know 19, 20-year-olds are drinking. I mean, that's a ridiculous statement to make. And to offer that as a reason not to support something that's evidence-based doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And I hope you guys will rethink this. I don't think there was a lot of good rationale provided. I did agree that increased police enforcement might help mitigate the speeding, and we do see them. They come, they're there for a while and then they go away again, and people behave when they're there. And then it goes right back to where it was. The other issue I had was the crosswalks. We've discussed them on multiple occasions. And at the last meeting, we discussed specific locations. We talked about the local law. Rob did get back to me after I asked several times, and I got the response that it was still being discussed. We've been talking about this since November. I'm wondering how much longer we're going to discuss it and when we're going to actually make a decision on it. And when we can expect an answer on this. And the other issue finally was the traffic lights. I did hear back from Senator Harkin's office. They did speak to the Department of Transportation, who said they have no intention of doing a traffic study for that area or making any intervention at 202 and Miller. And Harkin's office suggested that typically what happens is the town board gathers up the data and works with the senator's office in order to move things forward. So we've been kind of circular with that because you sent us to the state's sending us back to you. I don't know what to do.
I'll tell you a weakness in that. I pursued it in another part of town, which
In front of the
was
high
that
school.
there were not enough accidents to justify it. I'm telling you, there's going to be a really bad one. Do we have to wait for that? Isn't there some way you can, as you say, quantify it? Do we have the evidence? Don't you have some way of analyzing this more than waiting for sufficient number of accidents? Now, I don't do traffic studies for a living, obviously, but it seems to me that there are some, bless you, common sense things. And that area, if you just drive that.
Pulling out of there tonight. I mean, we were lucky we didn't get hit. It's just,
That's surprising to me.
but the kind of data that they're looking for, we don't have access to, and we need help from you guys to do that. And I'm happy to do whatever footwork needs to be done, but we need your support on this.
So for that, you said for 202 and Miller, a
Yeah.
traffic light.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
wonder if it's more of a sightline issue.
it's a horrible sightline issue because there's that curve there, and now that the trees are coming in, you can't see what's coming, and they're flying down that road.
Yeah.
And
And there have been accidents on that.
there have been fatalities there.
Yeah.
And there was just an accident a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. That looked, I mean, I don't know how if anyone was seriously hurt, but it was a lot of cops there, a lot of
Yeah.
action. And it's only getting worse every
I think
year.
we
It's
probably
worse.
should know, what is it that they would want? What do they need from the town to know whether it deserves a traffic light? I understand everyone wants a traffic light at each of their corners, and that's not,
That's not going to happen.
and it
Right.
shouldn't happen, right? But I would like to know the evidence that or the information they need from the town, and that would give us obviously a little bit better direction. So Senator Harkin's office didn't say that to you in any way. Here's what you've got to ask the town to do.
No.
I mean, we can call them. I mean,
Tito is his name.
Yeah.
Is the guy in the Harkham's office that I've been talking to.
okay.
Yeah.
And I did send a letter to Matt Slater's office after seeing him at the last meeting. Maybe he can help too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Robin, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Archer from 2 Crest Drive North, and basically supporting what Robin's saying. We do appreciate the work that's been done to date. The mirror that was installed near Crest Drive North is somewhat helpful. We're still running across and kind of hoping that no one comes over the crest, which, by the way, there's no sign on that crest. That might be a little bit helpful to have a blind crest sign, because nobody can see when they're going up that hill of Overhill Drive, but that's an aside.
Is that additional? Originally looked at?
Yeah, we didn't add that to the list because I assumed there was a sign there. I went for a walk and went, oh, there isn't even a sign. So there really should be something. If you drive up, you can see that. Well, you can't see. So I think I remember when we first started doing this, like, we're not traffic experts. And I agree with Chief Linkletter that there should be a proper engineering study to determine what's needed. Scarsdale, where I work, they recently enacted the 25 mile per limit 25-mile-per-hour limit after extensive analysis that included an examination of crash and speed survey data, characteristics of the land environment, roadway functions, frequency and nature of side roads and driveways, and roadway geometry. So we know there's disagreement with some of the measures we've put forward, but obviously the answer is not to accept unsafe conditions. And we're requesting that a traffic engineering study be done. And we want to know what you would need from us to start something like that, because that also speaks to what you're saying would needed to be presented to Harkham's office.
Do you know how long it took, Scarsdale took to do that stuff?
I don't know how long it took to do the study. I know the mayor said they'd been supporting it for a couple of years. I can look into it and find out more about that.
If you could, how long did it take? Who did they use? How did they pick that? Are there a lot of choices on that? Obviously, how much did it cost? That should.
Well, that's a question, right? So,
well,
yeah,
but when you talk about safety within any reason
mhm.
would be good. If you could do that, that probably would be helpful.
So come back next meeting and
just send it-
provide some,
just
or
send
send
it
an
to
email
supervisor.
with who they used and how long it
Anything
took.
that you find there from Scarsdale.
Okay. And then if I get that information, like what would you need? Maybe do the residents need to do a petition to get it done, or, because I know it costs money, so not sure if there's something we need to provide you with.
I think we'd have to look at that. I don't speak for the board, but I would think we need to look, what would be the next step based upon what we have found out? All right, now we have this information. What do we do with it?
Yeah,
I think that would probably be the thing.
I think it would be most effective because we can put forth all the ideas we want. I mean, we don't, and then if someone disagrees with them, it's more opinion than anything else. So, all right, I'll get that information and I'll email it to the town. Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
And maybe some of that we could use to justify a light at
For
that
Harkham's.
spot, if we have some of that information, if it dovetails with that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. You just state your name and.
Felipe Alvarez, 9 Cypress Lane, right in Shenorock. Unrelated to that. I got to pick and choose what I want. They know more about it than I do. But one thing, when I walk the dog and take him to the dog park is managed well, but I think it needs some kind of enhancements. If there's any funds available or anything like that, like other dog parks have, they have those little exercise things for them, the barrels, the little walkways, and there's never no grass there. So when it rains, I can't take my dog out there. I got a bad back. I can't be washing the dog 1,000 times. But, you just need some enhancements. Nothing major, but, something to look at. Second, I addressed this before, the signs around the lake in Shenorock. I know you guys said you were going to work on it, but I haven't seen any signs yet. The no dumping, which is an issue every now and then, people throwing all their cuttings and everything there. And I said before, sometimes I catch 1 or 2 companies trying to dump their stuff there on the side, and I make them take it out, or I'll report them or whatever. And, the no parking is a big issue, because if you go through there, you can see all the swaths of no grass on the side. People are walking their dogs, people are jogging, and they use that whole area to walk, and it shouldn't look like excuse my language, but a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
All right?
We don't want that language.
You don't want that one.
No, I'm being serious. I'm being serious. You're gonna use a lot of
I
different
put away with
adjectives.
it because I used to be in the Marine Corps, but I'm sorry.
We're not.
But anyway,
Yeah.
it's just something that's very easy to fix. The no parking signs, the no dumping signs, just something to deter them from constantly destroying something that you guys went out and got a grant for. You made a pathway, you made it real nice, and you tried to enhance it. So I think it should stay that way for future generations, for whatever the time the lake has and we have. So, people are going to use it more this summer because it gets full when the summer comes around more than the winter. And, we have people, we clean up the place when the time comes when the town has that cleanup, the annual cleanup with the bags. We take a lot of garbage out of there and, so I think it's just an important part of the community to enjoy for everybody. And have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
All
Thank you,
right.
Philippe. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Beat that out.
All right. there anybody else here for public comment? Anybody out there on Zoom? Nope. Okay. And I'll make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
All in favor? All right, so moved. Okay, going to skip over the approval of minutes, and Patty, can we go right to department reports?
I have reports from the town clerk, building inspector, zoning board of appeals, plumbing, fire bureau of prevention, parks and recreation, planning and engineering, tax receiver, and director of finance.
Great. Thank you. Okay, matters of the town board, town of Somers update. As of recently, the past couple of hours, there's been some back and forth about the governor's budget. Is she going to take out her housing mandates? Some people are saying that she is going to take out the housing mandates, and other people are saying they're just waiting to see. So I think we're on the right path to her doing something with that, and so the budget can get approved for the state. And that's one of the big things that is holding it up, is the housing mandates. As we've heard last week from Assemblyman Slater. We'll keep you posted on that as we get some more information.
But they passed another extender
They
today.
expect another extender today, yeah, so
So
they have another 7 days or
I'm
so?
still guessing another 2 or 3 weeks.
Another 2 or 3 weeks.
They haven't looked at anything beyond bail reform and
I think they're good with
housing
everything else except for those two. Those
Yeah.
are
Those are
the
the
two
two
things.
Those are the two big hangups. So those are 2 big hangups. And then on more of a positive note, Paul, if you could swing that camera around for everybody out there to see. We have a new old bet. It's a great piece. We had World Circus Day on this over the weekend. Great turnout here. This new old bet will be sometime, hopefully late summer, early fall, will be put up outside to replace the old one. The old one would be put here into the Elephant Hotel. It's a great piece of artwork. It weighs close to 525 pounds.
This guy.
The new old bet. And so we're looking forward to that being put up there. We have some work to do. But once we get a date on the calendar, we'll let everybody know, and you can come out and see the new old bet up on the pedestal.
Local resident.
Local resident too, Luigi. I forget Badera, but Badia.
Need it.
Yeah, I did a great job. Local sculptor too. Also did the sculpture at Ivandale Cemetery. So he's
And he's world renowned, right?
world renowned, and couldn't be better statue to be here. So looking forward to seeing it fully up there sometime soon.
It's beautiful.
Stuff.
It's good stuff. Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next day, we have the Somers Land Trust presentation. Michael Barnhart, president, and Bob McGregor, the vice president. If you guys want to come up here.
Yeah. I think the
Well, thanks for hosting us tonight. We were motivated to ask for a meeting for a couple reasons. One was the last time we updated you officially on Anglefly or any of that sort of thing was 2015, I think we decided. So I think you're overdue for some kind of recitation of what's happened. The other thing was that, well, let me preface it by saying the Somers Land Trust, first of all, we're celebrating our 30th birthday this year. We've been around, I don't know how we've done it, but we've managed to hang on for 30 years and would like to continue. But, you know, we used to be very small and mostly just represented the interests of conservation in the town, but we didn't really do much beyond that, beyond some public education and outreach and things like that. And then, of course, the open space bond initiative and the acquisition of Anglefly and all that completely changed things for us. And we ramped up to actually doing more of what land trusts traditionally do. But most of what we did was related to Anglefly in one form or another. And that was fine because that was the major focus of everybody's efforts at that point. But as we became more involved with our various partners that partnerships that we developed out of the whole bonding initiative and the open space acquisition projects that we were involved in, and began to develop regional links and get involved in wider projects. We realized that by the time we reach 30 years old, we're beginning to stretch our resources significantly in terms of, what our bandwidth makes us capable of. So, Bob's going to give you some idea of what we've done in Anglefly, and he may mention some of the organizations in that, or I think in the report you have there a list of the organizations that we've been involved with, some of which we've had something of a lead role in, including H2H Hudson to Housatonic, which is a regional conservation partnership involving all the land trusts and even many of the conservation advisory councils and things like that in both the Hudson Valley and the Housatonic Valley, because it's Hudson to Housatonic. And there are a lot of initiatives coming out of that one, some which have shown up in town. For example, Pollinator Pathways, which has been enormously popular, not just in our region, but throughout the nation. It's taken over as a major project, partly because I think it's something that everyone can do. You don't have to be a large landowner. You don't even have to be much of a landowner at all. You just have to have a garden box, basically, and you can participate. So, and there are new objectives coming, or new projects that they're going to be developing. We have a speaker coming on Sunday, a renowned environmental writer, Tony Hiss. He wrote for the New Yorker for something like 25 or 30 years, covered the environmental beat there. And he's recently written a book on the project to save, his book is about saving 50% of the Earth's land surface, because if you hit that mark, you can save 90% of the species. And this is sort of a global initiative, but it's been picked up, particularly by New York State, with a more modest, smaller version of the same kind of project. It's called 30 by 30. That is saving 30% of New York State's land surface. It's open space. It's remaining open space by 2030. And this is something we're very excited about. And I think it's going to be the focus of much of the funding. And there's a massive amount of funding coming down the pipeline, both from the state and also from the federal government. And we really want to be able to harness this to benefit conservation in the town and to participate in these regional sort of projects, which I think will benefit us all tremendously.
So proportionately, how do we sort of stack up in that?
Well, that's what Tony's going to talk about. We're 28.3% by my calculation. So he's sort of framing it as Somers is a showcase almost.
So Governor Hochul gets to put her footprint here.
Right. Well, if we can give credit to anybody, that's good, because we need all the goodwill we can. But yeah, we're almost there, and I don't see any reason why we wouldn't make that. Obviously, 30% is only part of the picture. You need to also protect the biodiversity on that 30% and between the parcels that make up that 30%. And that's still a major challenge. And it's something that, we at the Land Trust are working very hard on. And we have some ideas, some initiatives that we want to undertake, which if I can talk about at some point. But so in 2007, you guys had given us daily maintenance, day-to-day operating responsibility for Anglefly Preserve. And we've really appreciated that. We've appreciated all the support, and we worked as hard as we could to try to prepare Anglefly, which meant, implementing essentially the conservation easement, which is essentially an agreement with the state to preserve the natural communities in there, provide for recreation, including the trails, the hunting, all that sort of thing. And, I think, as Bob's report will make clear, we've pretty much accomplished that objective. We also worked hard on the town's 15-acre parcel. And, we poured a lot of resources into the building at the front, the Reynolds House, but also the surrounding grounds, in putting in composting toilets for the public so that they had some relief, and in general, trying to, provide for the security on the place. And, I'm really gratified that Rob, as the new supervisor, has taken a real interest in Anglefly and in, finishing the job on that 15 acres. We all appreciate that very much. We have a list of things that, we think should be done. And Rob had asked me for what our top 3 priorities were. So I'll give you the 3, and then, Bob can give you all the details, which are numerous. But, that's been a really good opportunity for us to think about, what needs to be done, what's been done, what needs to be done, and, how we get this done. And I think what we're looking for is a new partnership with the town. The town, at this point, the town has gotten involved enough in the property that I think the idea that we do the day-to-day decision-making operations and so on is kind of beside the point at this stage, because, really it is the town's, the 15 acres are certainly the town's, and the rest of it is also under the town's purview. We just have simply been acting as your agents, basically. We'll be happy to talk about what we think that might look like in a minute or two. But that's the reason why we're here today, is to just kind of update you and also talk about how we go forward on these priorities. Why don't I turn it over to Bob and he can talk about what's been done, but
Just
Michael, before you go.
Yeah. You want to go first?
Okay, just to, for people who are watching, and, that's the dedicated band of merry pranksters that you have who follow you around, and the small group, that really gets a lot done.
yes.
And we owe a lot to them. Perhaps for those who are watching and aren't really aware, so how many acres, we talked about percentage before of almost 30%. How many acres do you people sort of watch over, manage, either literally part of the land trust or an open space committee? It's basically.
Oh yeah, no. Bob will go into that,
Okay.
but I can give you a rough figure, around 1,000 acres.
Yeah, so for people who are, and you're always.
And we're
welcome.
responsible. We've either taken the lead or been a major player in the protection of all of those 1,000 acres, basically.
Yes. And you're always welcome to people who have an interest in this.
We welcome, and we've begun
You're
to see.
tired, 30 years, you're tired. Gosh,
Yeah.
Succession planning here, gentlemen, all right?
What's that?
Succession planning.
Yeah, well, that's a major problem for groups like ours.
Yeah.
They surface, they have a moment, and then they die. This is very common.
Yes.
And we're trying very hard not to do that. Oh, and just to give you an idea of our size, so most of our board and that is, and also some of our volunteers are here, and I meant to mention them. So we have Rosie Van Ward here, Loretta Jones, who's our treasurer, and Pat McGregor is here in supporting role, although she gives a great deal of gardening advice and tells us when we're doing things wrong. So.
Thank you.
But yeah, we've.
Invasive species.
Awesome.
Yes. Well, when we did the trails, we had to dig out native species at Pat's direction and move them out of the treadway, which so.
Michael, you referred to, like, you had about 1.3, 1.4 million in grants. What was the period? Is that from 2015?
Let me turn that over to
I thought
Bob
he's gonna
because.
do that.
we're-
Okay, you
Yeah,
got
yeah,
ahead of Bob.
yeah,
Am I jumping
yeah,
ahead?
yeah.
Okay.
So
Poor Bob's waiting.
let me
Go,
move
Bob.
over.
Let me listen.
Mike's stealing my thunder.
Okay, so as you've asked about a little bit about the size of the property and some of the things about the property, it's important to recognize that Anglefly Preserve is made up of ownership of 269 acres by New York City DEP. That's protected watershed land. They control that property, but fortunately, the town has a permit from them for us to be able to develop that property, particularly for recreation purposes and hiking trails. As you remember, I think we talked about this before, but some of the people who might be watching aren't aware, but we were the first organization in town that was allowed to actually do work on DEP property for recreation purposes. So our relationship with DEP created the framework which they now use across all of their properties in the Catskills as well as east of Hudson. What they found was that by having people on the property on a regular basis, having an organization of people who, like the land trust, traveling through that property, it provides greater protection for their watershed area than they did when they only allowed fishing people to come in. But by having people there on a regular basis, it really cut down on issues which they were experiencing. So I think that's one of the big things that a lot of people don't realize, but that was a big accomplishment for us. That was 269 acres. There's 370 acres of Anglefly Preserve that are owned jointly between the town and the county. And those are the areas which have a conservation easement on. And so there we do everything that we can to protect that open space. We try to develop it within the natural resource concept so that we are continuously trying to remove invasive vegetation and promoting native vegetation. We're trying to promote trees that are beneficial for the habitat, the animals, and the other areas that use the preserve, the pollinator pathways. So more recently, what we found, particularly across those two big properties, is that we are seeing more black bear coming through. I'll talk a little bit about that as we get further into this, but with the black bear, one of their primary foods are beech nuts. We have a lot of beech trees in Anglefly. That's why they like it there. Now, think about a black bear that weighs 200 or 300 pounds trying to get a beech nut, which is a tiny nut. I don't know whether you've seen it, but it's about the size of a penny. They have a very interesting way of getting their beech nuts. They climb the tree, they shake the tree, the beech nuts fall off, they then climb down and eat the beech nuts that are falling off the tree. So it's an interesting thing with the habitat that we're trying to promote and trying to keep it active. We also have a significant deer population. And as you're aware, we have a wildlife management program. Over the last 12 years of that program, we've harvested 127 deer out of the property. It's not significant, but it is providing us for a reasonably healthy herd so that we don't have the deer waste and some of the other issues that they're finding around the state with the deer population. The other piece about our deer population in Anglefly is that they stay healthy because they have a good supply of food. They like to find food in Anglefly, but their preferred food is the buffet in the homeowners around the preserve. The people who plant hosta and other kinds of plants around in their yards, the deer go out.
What's their favorite entree for the
hosta? They love the hosta. Yeah, and people love to plant hosta. And there are a bunch of other plants that the deer really like. So I think they've got a map so that they can go around the community and figure that, okay, the buffet on a Monday night is going to be this house. On Tuesday night, we'll go to that house. On Wednesday, we'll go to that house. And after they've gone 2 weeks, then they start back at the first house again.
Is a party every night. You can tell all the deer.
galore.
So
Limited.
So it's important, so we're doing a lot to use the 207 or the 370 acres and 269 acres to support the wildlife. We have a lot of groups that come through. We're seeing a significant increase in the number of visitors, particularly during COVID. Our attendance in Anglefly just skyrocketed. It was interesting to watch the people who would come through because in many cases, the kids were homeschooled. So we would see the young adults come out. at like 7 o'clock to about 8:30, 9 o'clock. They'd go home for their Zoom meetings and so forth. By 10 o'clock, the seniors would come in. By 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, we would have the families with young kids. Many mothers and fathers said we had to get the kids out of the house. So we needed to get them some exercise. So they would bring them to Anglefly, and then we would see the younger adults come back in around 4 o'clock after they finished their Zoom calls and other things. So we saw a significant increase in our attendance.
Has that attendance still been up?
Yes.
It has, okay.
Yeah. We've got a lot of people who have continued to come to Anglefly. We had a couple of comments from individuals who said that Anglefly was their salvation, particularly during COVID, that they had to get out of the house. They had to go someplace where it was safe, and Anglefly was that place. We also had many of the residents of Heritage Hills who had normally had their children and grandchildren come and visit them at Heritage Hills. They moved their visits to Anglefly, and it would not be unusual to see a couple of senior citizens arrive, and then their children and grandchildren all, and they would go out for a hike in the woods. So that was a salvation, I think, for many, many families in the community.
Do you have pets on the trails? I just.
No dogs.
Okay.
We do that because they're a lot of work. And if you remember at Cagle Park, at one point in time, we tried to have dogs there, and that did not work out well at all.
Yeah.
So we don't have, it deters a few people, but most of the people understand that it's no dogs. And they'll leave their dog at home and they'll come and use the trails.
Okay, just wanted to get that out there.
A couple of other things that in Anglefly, we've got a very diverse geographic area there. We've got a fair amount of wetlands, which again is why DEP wanted their 269 acres. There's marshes and wetlands on their property that all feed into a stream that feeds into the reservoir. We've got a couple of nice streams on the main property under the 370 acres. And those are buffered by wetlands and some swamp areas. But the majority of the Anglefly Preserve is really forested land. If we look at Anglefly at this point in time, one of the things that we're really interested in are the trees. Right now, we estimate we have in Anglefly about 250,000 trees. So when we think about from a climate and environmental point of view, Anglefly is a very critical carbon collector for the town. And when that goes into what Tony's talking about, the 30% and the 50%, that's what they're looking for, is the ability to be able to sustain the environment. If you remember, we had a $75,000 grant when we started with Anglefly to build out. We used it for a fiberglass bridge. And I know a couple of you were there for that. Very helpful to carry in pieces of the bridge. We had about 125 to 150 volunteers from the town show up for that multiple day activity. And I think that was a very important activity because it brought a lot of people in the community together. And people who may not have met somebody else met them there. And if you're carrying in something and you're on one end and somebody you didn't know is on the other end, by the time you've carried that in a half a mile, you've gotten to know them. So it was very successful for that.
And that bridge links the two halves over the
Yes,
brook.
it does.
So you're talking about the sort of the DEP property and the other jointly managed property, and that beautiful bridge in a beautiful part of the preserve, it links the two together.
Yeah, it goes over the stream, which has a fair amount of water running through it year round. But that's kind of a destination during COVID for a lot of the families with young kids. So they would get them in to go down to the bridge, look at the water. Kids love water. So that was the destination. They would look at the water and then they would come back. So
Is that stream that's that Anglefly stream? Is
that's
that,
Anglefly Brook.
that is that.
Yeah.
Anglefly Brook.
It's a DEC controlled waterway. So that we had to have a permit to be able to build the bridge. We had to get DEC approval, which we did. So it's a very nice destination. In addition, with the $75,000, it provided a lot of building materials for bog bridging and smaller bridges throughout the property. Currently, with the DEC easement, we had to provide 10 miles of hiking trails on the property, which we did do. We have added at least another mile of trails on the property as we found places where people wanted to go. And so you can watch traffic as they go around. And again, where we have ponds and things like that, people will create some trails. So we were fortunate enough to be able to build some additional trails. As far as youth activities go, at Anglefly, we have done about 42 Eagle and Gold Award projects. Eagle for the Eagle Scouts, the Boy Scouts, and the Gold is the top badge for the girls. So we provide a lot of opportunity for scouts, both boys and girls, to get out and do something in nature. Every one of our projects, whether it's building something or whatever, all has a learning element about environment with it. So I think that that's one of the reasons why we get so many kids coming out to our properties.
Bob, I just want to make sure I heard you right. You said 42?
42.
42 Eagle Scout and Gold Awards.
That's right.
That's tremendous.
We have, and also now with Rhinoceros Creek, we have done we've completed 5. We've got 2 going over there right now. So you add all those together, we're running close to 50 Eagle and Gold projects for youth. We have a number of scouts from Troop 228, which is one of the Boy Scout troops here in town, and 376, which is the other town Boy Scout troop. So we work closely with both of those. More recently, Scout Troop 173 from Yorktown is now getting involved with us to do projects.
Good.
So the Scout leaders they like it when they do projects with us because they get an environment element to it. So they're learning about invasives, they're learning about native plants, they're learning about building things, building trails, and those kinds of things. So that's a big plus for us.
Just
Do you
before you
have a
go on, in
record of-
case, I'm sorry.
Do you have a record of the 42 to 50 projects that they've done for you?
Yep.
Oh, good. It's on the website maybe, or just,
Mrs.
it's an important thing.
Ward
It's an
keeps a
important
list of them.
recognition. Maybe to get that out there.
Yeah.
That's a good part. That's a great partnership.
Yeah, and we also, in addition to that, we do a number of other youth projects where youth needs community service. You know, whether it's for school, whether it's for church, whether it's for another activity. There are a number of youth in this town that need community service, and we sponsor a lot of those activities. Currently, I've got right now 2 projects that are going from 2 girls from Somers High School. They're seniors. As part of one of their school projects, they have to do an intern with something that might help them in the future. I'll explain their projects, but they're both going to be going to college for environmental science. So we can give them an opportunity to do projects that are particularly advantage to them and probably give them an advantage when they get to college and they get into their environmental science courses. So let me jump into that because it falls right in where I was just talking about the forest.
Just before you change that topic, just want for the people who are watching, who don't know Rhinoceros Creek. It's about half-mile north of here.
Yes.
On the left-hand side or the west side of 100. There's a nice pavilion that you had built with a grant. And how many acres do you have there that people? Because that's a walk uphill. It's not nearly as big. But how big is that?
There are 55 acres on the west side of 202
And the other
and
side.
59 acres on the other side.
That many?
Yes, and there are 2 ponds on the other side.
Yeah.
And we've got trails on both of those properties, sides of the road. And again, like I said, we've done a number of scout projects there, but we get a lot of activity on those two because there's some easier walking areas in there. And again, during COVID, we had a number of families with very young children where they might have had a 2 or a 3-year-old or a child in a stroller, and they could get out and get into the woods and get into the nature kinds of things and be away from home. So that. Let me switch a little bit to some tree stuff. As I mentioned, we've got 250,000 trees in Anglefly. Just to give you an idea, about 30% of them are beech trees. One of the things in our maintenance to take care of the property in Anglefly is that we have to continually go in after we have every single storm and we have down trees. We went through the ash trees down with the emerald ash borer, killing off the ash trees. So during that period of time we were in, and we probably had to deal with maybe 25 or 30 ash trees. But what's coming, and one of the things that you're probably going to start to get questions about are the beech trees. The beech trees are under attack right now. And as I said, 30% of the trees at Anglefly are beech trees. At Kegel Park, probably about 40% of your trees in Kegel Park are beech trees. And probably 20 to 25% of your trees in Reese Park are beech trees. They're dealing with beech bark disease. That's a disease that came in through Halifax, Canada. It is a nematode that gets underneath the bark and cuts off the sap that goes to the tree and causes the tree to die within 3 to 4 years. We have a second attack on the beech trees, which is beech leaf disease. This came in through Ohio from Asia. It came in on pallets of wood, which were discarded, and the nematode has gotten out and it's come this way. And we started to see it in the last year or two. But the beech leaf disease causes the leaves in the beech tree to die. So that's reducing the canopy for the tree. So with the bark disease and the beech leaf disease, we're going to see probably the vast majority of the beech trees in town will be dying in the next 3 to 4 years. So as we look at Anglefly, if we've got 40 to 50,000 beech trees, we're expecting to have a significant number of trees that come down that we're going to have to cut to keep our trails open. And that's going to create another major problem in all of the parks about what do we do about reforestation. So how do we address that? We know the process to use, but I think we all have to work together on that if in fact we're going to deal with that. As far as
and we know that's going to happen.
I know it's going to happen. I can guarantee it's going to happen. So if you've got a beech tree in your yard, I would suggest that you plant another tree to take its place when that dries, probably in the next 3 or 4 years. Now, there will be some that will survive. We found that with the ash trees and all the different kinds of trees that go through these processes. Some will survive, and those will propagate so that we will have some new forests. But when you take a 36-inch beech tree and it dies and falls, your sapling that is a quarter of an inch in diameter, it's going to take a while to get to that size. As far as some of the other things that we've done at Anglefly, we worked a lot on the Reynolds Farm area, which includes the Reynolds House, the Yellow Barn, the Poultry Barn, the composting toilet. We planted a native habitat restoration area. It's named after Mickey Oliver. For that, we originally planted that with 600 plants, 87 different varieties, all native. We got the native plants either from residents that have propagated plants or from nurseries that specialize in native plants regionally. The propagation of plants, I've got to give my wife a lot of credit. Our whole backyard was filled with pots as we were propagating seeds, which we had collected from Anglefly Preserve, grew them, and then we replanted them. The advantage of that is that they are adapted to that particular area. So after we did the 600, we've done several other scout projects and other youth projects, as well as additional projects around the pond area. And we added about another 300 plants and shrubs. So the pond area has really been developed for an environmental, ecological area that people can come and recognize that these are plants that you can use in your yard. Those plantings are now part of the Pollinator Pathway project, so that people will visit just to see the plantings. Just to give you an idea about from an ecological point of view, that when we first arrived at Anglefly in 2007, 2008, we were lucky if we could find a honeybee. Today, we've planted plants, and if you go over there during the summertime, it's swarming with honeybees. So we've made a big difference from an ecological point of view. As far as the Reynolds Farm area, we've done other things around to make it a showcase as the entrance of the preserve. We think that that's very important, so people arrive and they can see all these things and they can see native plants and those kinds of things. We've talked about the condos in the back from a point of view. We still want to get rid of those as you do. We just have to find a solution. So that's one of those things that it's not on the short list of immediate things to do, but it better be on our list of what we can do and figure out how we can do it. And I'm hoping with the all the money that's at the federal and the state level that there will be some grants that we could possibly take advantage of to help us with the expense associated with that. As far as Anglefly goes, there are a few things that are really important. What we know is, and this is kind of our guiding principles, that medical research has talked a lot about promoting the value for humans of being out in nature. That it helps with people who have anxiety and other kinds of medical illnesses. To be out in nature is really important. The other piece is that when we look at the demographics of the town, which I'm sure you've already looked at, but we recognize that about 25% of our population is age 65 and above. So that's going to continue to grow, I think. So Anglefly and our recreation areas with like Rhinoceros Creek and so forth provide the opportunity, particularly for our seniors, to be able to get out and get into nature, get exercise, and do things like that. There's a massive amount of money that's going to be available. As we know, and I'm sure you know, there's $1.7 trillion from the federal government. Part of that is going to be for climate kinds of issues and water and so forth. Anglefly and the other properties are in watershed land. So we should be able to get some money for reforestation, invasive removals, and those kinds of things. And the state has $4.2 billion. We should be able to get a good portion of that. In order to do those kinds of things, clearly, we're going to need people who are knowledgeable enough to be able to look at grants and say, okay, we can do a grant. We have the knowledge and skill to be able to define a project and to go forwards to get a grant, manage the grant, and then maintain what we've just done. So that's kind of an overview of Anglefly. I don't know whether you've got any questions on that before I turn it back to Michael.
Are you in contact with our grant writer? You know, so
Yes.
teeing this up.
Yeah, we get grants. We get grants through our contacts. We have, as Michael said, the H2H. We're in contact with a number of other land trust organizations. And so we're getting a lot of information about grants. And the grant writer sometimes sends stuff to Rob and who forwards it on to us. The key for grants is that you need people who are knowledgeable enough to be able to define a project for a grant so that you can write it in such a way so that you can get the grant. Now, we've got a couple of advantages between Michael and myself. We've got a lot of knowledge about what is important to have in a grant when it comes to the vegetation that we want to talk about in the grant. I've got my wife who can, as Rich knows, is very knowledgeable about plants. And so we can define projects and things that can be eligible for grants.
Is that where that working relationship comes in, right? If you see something that's that you want us to go after, let's get together and we'll go after it.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that we have a lot of knowledge, but long-term, the town has to think about having the resources to do some of the things that we're doing, because we talked about sustainability of our organization. We're trying to continue that, but I think it's a partnership that we need to be together so that there's resources with the town, so that if we get a grant, that we can manage the grant and then we can maintain it. So
You have specific ideas about that, what needs to be done to sustain this effort going forward? Are there things that you have a list like, hey, could you do these things for us? Or
well, there's some very specific things. Now, you saw last month, I think, a presentation on the tree inventory.
Yeah.
So that was a big dollar ticket. $1.2 million, and they were recommending you do $250,000 a year for 5 years. That's a pricey project. But that was dealing with about 1,500 trees out of the 3,600 trees that were inventoried. So about 700 of those trees were to be removed. About 700 of those trees were to be pruned or maintained or some kind of maintenance for those trees. They were recommending that we have an arborist. Those are the kinds of things that we probably need to talk about, because if we have to start to do reforestation, we have to deal with those issues with those trees and other kinds of things. We need people who have knowledge in those areas. And if we've got the right staff, or we can produce the right staff, then you can get the grant. So it's a bigger discussion than we can have right now, but it's one that we ought to put on the table and have a discussion.
So you're framing the succession with the granting process, because the granting process is a multi-year commitment.
That's correct.
However, I mean, but you also need succession just for the.
Both. But if we can have the partnership, then it works better because then we can help from this point, and then the town can work. So we're all on the same page, because grants are going to be given to the town in most cases. We can get some from land trust organizations for us, but like the $75,000 grant that we got in the beginning went to the town.
Okay.
So,
Get it.
Yeah.
so all I'm saying is that we should have a further dialogue on that so that we get our share and can probably get millions of dollars of grants. Also, how do we get grants and how do we match if we need do a match on those? There are all kinds of things which we can do and partner things together. So
Okay.
About that. So let me turn it over to Michael and he'll kind of wrap us up.
Yeah, Mike, I want to hear the your top three.
Yeah, how did David Letterman do that? But it was the top 10.
Top 10.
He started from the bottom. I'm going to start. So, yeah, well, thank you, Bob. And, it's been a long road, but I think that the results have been really gratifying, and will continue to be so. So, there are two levels here. So I'm thinking about Anglefly and your challenge to identify what we thought were the top priorities there. And then there's this sort of longer term stuff, part of what Bob was talking about, which goes to the sustainability of these efforts and also our organization. One thing I think just I want to say about that is, given that we're a small organization and organizations come and go, so we have to be prepared, supposing we couldn't replace ourselves. So for example, with Rhinoceros Creek, we've taken care of that. So that property will always be protected. We've ensured that were we never to be here, it would still be protected. I think also the kinds of projects that Bob's alluding to and so forth, we want to ensure that the town has the capability to pursue those. Because I think going forward, all of these are going to be major issues, as we're well aware. None of these environmental issues are going to go away. I mean, the beech bark and the beech leaf disease are just a small example of the kinds of things we're going to be facing. Especially as we face increasing temperatures, like we experienced a couple of weeks ago. You guys experienced. I was out in Seattle, so I escaped all that. But, it's something that we'll be dealing with on an ongoing basis. But just to talk about Anglefly for the moment and what we think the three most important things are. I mean, I think with regard to the 370 acres and the 269 acres that are DEP and so on, much of what we wanted to do, we've done. And I think we're a good position there. Although there's one sort of extra thing I think that still needs to be done, which is that we secured the relationship we have with DEP on the promise that we would make our best effort to connect Lasden and Anglefly so that there would be some kind of trail connection there. With the ultimate goal of realizing something that many Somers people have worked on now for almost 50 years, which is connecting Muscoot and Lasden so that you would have a continuous kind of set of parks that would take you from Muscoot all the way up through Anglefly, which connects with Reese Park, up through the schools. You could potentially drop down to the old railroad bed there, and you could get a trail that leads into the schools and so forth. So, I mean, there's a tremendous opportunity here for a really state-of-the-art trail network in a municipality. So that's one thing that I think we still need to think about. It's a very tricky proposition because of the crossing on Route 35 and securing the necessary easements to get over there, because we don't quite line up with Lasden Park. We're close, but there are about a couple hundred yards that we need to cross.
So Michael, is that number one or is that?
Well, that's my
Preamble.
outside the envelope.
That's your
Outside.
preamble to your three.
Yeah. So here are my three. Well, the thing was that I think that, in the context of the conversations that Rob was having with us, we were really focused on the town property in many ways. As I said, I think that the rest of it is provided for. There are some outstanding things that will always be an issue, no matter who's doing the day-to-day stuff, which I can talk about if you have questions. But so I'm mostly focused on the 15 acres. So I think the three things that we think would be, that we would recommend as your top priorities. The first is security. That's a no-brainer for number one, I think. We had the reason why we had pushed for renovation of the Reynolds house, besides romantic, the romance of an old building. It was because we wanted to put a caretaker in there. We thought that would be a good solution to, a security problem that we have on the property. And it was based on the very scary security that used to exist there when it was a private property. His name was Mo, and he was a legend with the school kids. They were afraid to go on the property. He was actually a very gentle person, but he looked scary, and he was effective.
I think we need Ichabod Crane.
Yeah, right. So if, we don't really, we have no skin. It's really the town's call on how you want to ensure security, but whatever we do, we want those measures to be really effective, and we think they should come sooner rather than later, because now that the contractor who was parking there and so on is gone, I'm a little concerned about nefarious doings.
Is he 100% gone?
Yeah, he's 100% gone at this point. Yeah, 100% gone.
All right, security.
So security was my number one. There again, I'm not a security expert, so I don't have a practical recommendation there. But other than, our original plan, which was the caretaker, but I think we should aim for something that's at least that effective, whatever you think that measure would be, or those combination of measures would be. Whether that's increased police presence and cameras. I think Rob had mentioned cameras at one point. Whatever. I don't, well, there are many details. Yeah, we're working on this. Yeah. So, and I think this is something that, is a no-brainer. Anyway, the second thing is cleanup completion is what I'm calling it. Removal of the residual infrastructure on the town portion of the property. And so that's a number of things. It's not just the condos. There are also poles and wires there, which are beginning to fall over, and I think present potentially a hazard. We have several trails that go through there. It's unsightly, and I think it gives the wrong impression for the property.
Poles and wires active?
No,
Okay.
they are disconnected, so they're not a public safety hazard in that respect. I'm thinking of them falling over, kids swinging around on the wires, playing Tarzan.
What are they?
I'm sure they're
Utility
privately owned poles.
They're privately owned. They were owned by the development
there are.
company.
Yeah, we'll go up there and take a look.
Yeah, so they're town. I think the pole out by the street may be NYSEG. There is a dead pole, I believe.
Could be busy.
By the Reynolds houses, the new one that's out by the road, is nice.
Yeah,
We
so
just
that
want
was
to make sure that have somebody come out and look and make sure it's 100%
sure.
deactivated.
Yeah.
It is recorded in NYSEG records as being dead.
Okay.
Famous last word.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, whatever needs to happen, whatever we have
Well,
to
that should
do.
be, how many poles are we talking about?
Oh, probably a dozen.
Oh, okay.
Three or four.
Right, but I mean, further back into the.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Very-
no, because they go back into the property. It's more than that, I think.
I don't know.
One by the well, one just before the well, one by the poultry barn.
Well,
one in the middle of the meadow, and then one up by the.
Oh, so
All right,
five.
so that's something that I would think would be a relatively,
It would also spruce up the front enormously. I think
Yeah.
it's an easy one.
So Tom works for NYSEG. That's got to be a rounding error.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah. I think with the condos, obviously Bob already hit on removal. We understand that that's obviously a tricky thing financially, but but I would recommend that, and the conservation easement actually that the state holds requires this, that we fence them off. So if we're not going to remove them in the short term, I think we had a kind of storm fencing up around
We
there.
had that orange fencing.
Yeah, and that,
Mhm.
you know, I think you may have helped me put it in too, or somebody,
Long time.
somebody on the town board did. You know, that is long gone.
Yes.
The signage is down. So, and in fact, our insurer, not ours, but your insurer had said, you know, fencing and signs, got to maintain fencing and signs. So I think that's a real priority. Bob had, I think, mentioned chain link fencing. You know, I think it should be something substantial though, that really deters.
Not get into the solutions.
Yeah,
It's
but-
condos, poles and.
Yeah. And the other thing we need to fence off is, and here I think we should have a substantial fence, but it doesn't have to be nearly as big, is the Tatum Mansion. Because I'm constantly chasing kids out of there.
What is that? I'm sorry. I didn't get-
It's on top of the hill.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the old Orvis Tatum Mansion.
See,
Was that?
No,
Yeah, did you get a chance to see?
no, we're
it?
supposed to walk it, you and I.
Yeah, yeah.
That, now,
Fascinating.
I got a question about that, because if someone's going to Nantucket, if you remember years ago, there's someone in the family who might have plans and bring them back. And then there was an idea of a computer generated sort of walk through that house of what it must have been, kind of like you can do that with the Titanic. You can
Sure.
go on a program and go through the Titanic.
Yeah.
Anything ever happened? Because that sounded so interesting, because that house must have been fantastic.
Mm.
And there are people in town, and maybe someone here in this room, who actually went to parties
Yes,
there,
that's right.
you know, in the 70s.
Right.
The cars. I mean, it must have been like the Great Gatsby.
It was like a Gilded Age. It was a gentleman's estate.
Yeah.
And
a lot of the
they had,
invasive he brought in.
well, I think that Loretta, didn't you track down photos from the Smithsonian of the gardens that were there? Right. Famed garden developer developed the plans for that. So they were famous gardens, actually. And we recovered a few of the artifacts in the garden, which I think are in the poultry barn, or rather in the yellow barn.
Didn't some of the invasives come, the Japanese wisteria or something, didn't it come from there, which is then
Yes.
affected a lot of, yeah.
And it's since grown rampant. That's another.
It's into my yard.
Yeah.
You want that fenced in.
I think we need to fence that.
So your number 2 on the list is about 5 different subs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's cleanup.
No,
That's why I
just
said
cleanup.
cleanup.
No, I don't disagree. with you.
Mike,
I don't disagree with
he'll
you.
send me a detailed,
Yeah.
detailed
I'm
list.
curious if on this, and maybe you're
For
gonna
the
get to it.
itemizations.
What's that?
Maybe you're gonna get to it, but I'm curious on this list if there's anywhere about repaving the driveway.
The driveway. No, actually not. But if you want to repave it, that's you.
Okay, well, no,
Well, here's why it's not a priority for me. I
that's
think,
low.
I think Nick DeVito's done a pretty good job of keeping it from being a car killer.
okay.
And we still there are a lot of amphibians, a lot of turtles cross that. They're very slow moving, especially the little eastern box turtles.
So this slows the cars down.
And people with it the way it is, you know why they complain? Because they go whipping in there and then they hit the bumps.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like natural speed bumps.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So rather than having to build speed bumps into a nicely paved driveway or something like that,
Yeah.
I think I'd rather leave the natural speed bump.
That's fine.
I'm on for cheap. That's cheap,
I
right?
was just curious.
Got it.
But I think the part right off, when you come right off of 139 there, you know, I think that has been, because you would come around and.
Yeah, and that could do with
So
some.
that has been, I
Yeah.
That's
think,
been-
better
that's
and will
been-
continue.
Yeah.
I think that.
Well, I
But after
have
that,
no
everybody-
doubt that you guys can add to this list.
Like that.
And Mike,
Yeah.
your last
Good
one?
news.
But go ahead. I'm sorry. Rick.
So, but, you know,
Right.
and
Like-
partly, you know, I'm basing this on comments that we've gotten from patrons of Anglefly. You know, people who've said, "Oh, I don't like this. This doesn't feel safe to me." The number one complaint we get is the condos. You know, people will say, "I don't feel safe going back there. It's spooky," that kind of thing. So, and I understand their complaint. And the other thing that I'm basing the utility poles on comments like my wife has made, which, you know, so anyway, so that's number 2. So it's just a broadly cleanup completion.
Right.
The third is closing gaps in land protection. So if you look at the outline of Anglefly, particularly in the western section, the DEP section, you'll see it has these enormous, it has this enormously irregular shape. You know, it hangs, it's kind of got this big overhang in the north section. And then It actually has an easement going through it, and then it shrinks broad, very much at its waist, and then it expands out again.
The other side of the reservoir.
Yeah, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
But you can't see the boundaries here, but yeah.
You lost me.
Yeah, well, you lost me too. Where are we? Molly Drive.
Go east.
Who's driving?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's Paul.
you gotta go east.
Zoom out and then head to the right.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, you have to go south. Yeah.
Hey, Paul, you're trying to do a good deed. Everybody's criticizing you.
You can see- Drag it down, you can see the outlines of the.
you gotta move up. You gotta
Yeah.
move this up.
So, yeah, this is good. Keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going, Paul.
Going. Perfect.
Stop.
Okay, this is great. So, this is the bottom here. 35 is down here. You see this kind of thing, right?
It cuts in.
Yeah, it cuts in this kind of thing.
Oh,
So that completely I should go to my.
yeah.
Those gaps
Should be every-
break the connectivity of the parcel. Now, those are still intact. Those properties are, they're still forested, they're not developed or anything, but they're not protected.
Who owns them?
Different people.
Okay.
Yeah, the one.
That's a cul-de-sac over there.
Yeah.
Go back to the top. No, you're good. You're good. I got it.
The northernmost off Orchard Hill, that was owned by the Wieners, and
Yeah.
it was subsequently sold to a developer who wants to put 2 houses in there.
Okay.
Which would not be good in terms of, protecting the biodiversity of that side of the property. The other one that intrudes up from 35, that is, I'm not sure where the ownership lies with that. That property's has changed hands several times. It is heavily forested. It's steeply sloped. It's got a rocky rolling topography. It's very environmentally sensitive, and its protection would complete, the sort of.
Is it zoned residential right now?
Yeah, zone residential. Yeah, yeah. So, we would like to explore,
How many
So-
acres is that?
the one that comes up, well, there are 2 properties that come up. They're about 25 acres each, so it's about 50 acres total. The other property, the Wiener parcel, was 15 acres. So we're talking about 65 acres total, which would really, especially since the Wiener parcel comes all the way down and crosses the Anglefly Brook. It would be a real improvement in protecting the water quality to protect that parcel and to prevent, a crossing there and all the infrastructure that would be associated with that.
How do we protect that? Do we?
Well, you have to find, I don't know,
You're trying to propose a conservation easement or something. like that?
conservation easement, acquisition, buying development rights. I mean, there are all sorts of strategies you can use.
What?
But you have to establish a relationship with the landowner, because these are consensual things, unless you want to go to eminent domain, which I doubt you do.
This could be one of the most expensive things you would do.
Yeah, this is expensive, but you could, Lori Ensinger and I were looking at the Wiener parcel. We were, the talk was in the neighborhood of around $500,000. So it's actually less than removing the condos.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want to put it in that context.
That's 15 acres?
That's 15 acres. So now I don't know whether the current owner is a willing seller in any way, shape or form, but people have plans and then they change.
Yep.
And so it's always good to talk to people and, keep you on their radar, which is how these kinds of things happen.
So Michael, the conservation easement for stewards, I mean, you don't have any, you have any participation in that or eclipse that in any way?
Well,
Or is that the land trust?
Well, the land trust actually has the responsibility to steward that, along with Scenic Hudson, I believe it is. But we wrote the baseline report for the forested portion of that. We have
Is that
some
part of your
residual
30%?
responsibility in there too, but it's protected. Yeah. No, it's the development rights there were extinguished.
Right.
So
Correct.
whatever happens to it, it cannot be developed. Yeah.
I got all three, yeah.
All right, good.
Michael, this is something that I know you'll send it over to me.
Yeah.
And we'll have we will have-
Triplicate.
Yeah.
Is it in this? It's in the
No, that's
board?
not, it's not in this,
Okay.
but you and I will have more conversations as.
Yeah,
as the-
I think it's a developing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so those are my three with the extra.
With the extra, and I'm sure you'll send me
Yeah.
First one.
4 through.
Right.
30.
Well, I'm waiting for Bob to do that. He's got.
He did a whole long-
Just for the public's point, there's a detailed write-up that's attached to this agenda out on the website. So if you go to this and you scroll through the.
Oh, you can see it
agenda,
there. Yeah.
it's a tremendous. report.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Bob.
We won't make it so long next time. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
8 years.
It's
Yeah,
all fine.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate it,
We'll
guys.
see you guys in 7.
yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, take
Thank
care.
you.
All right. Good job,
Okay.
Michael.
Let's move on to number 3, consideration to officially recognize Arbor Day, April 28th, 2023 by issuing a proclamation. We did this last year on April 9th. I have no
None?
I'm all
Objection.
for it. So I'll make a motion then to recognize April 28th as Arbor Day.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Oh, damn well.
Yes, we are going to go, we're gonna do add on now, if we could. Dan from Sustainable Westchester, if you want to come up here and give us an update.
Yeah.
We get near that time, Dan.
Paul set me up beforehand here. So everything is gonna work just perfectly, right? Put this one, share. Share. How's that? Okay. Hi, everybody. Before I start, listening to your meeting, just got all kinds of thoughts. First of all, remember us in Lewisboro on that connectivity thing. Remember, we talked about the old bridge getting to the train station there. So that's the end of your whole. Can you hear me? Testing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Dan Welsh of the Lewisboro
yeah,
Town
also
Board
that's my other hat.
and a
So
noted environmentalist.
yeah, so yeah, I was excited by all your stuff going on there on the trails and a great presentation and everything. The other thing, oh yeah, about the roads for reference value. I don't know if it's any use, but we in Lewisboro, we actually made supplication to the state to change all of our local roads to 25 miles an hour. I don't know. I heard, the initial presentation there. I don't know what kind of road it is, but we decided, we couldn't manage it without doing something. So we actually got approval to do that. So they're all the local roads are 25.
How long
miles
did
an hour.
that take you to do?
I don't think it was that bad. And I think basically hit our local assembly person and senators. It's legislation, I think, that has to go through, but like
Oh, a year, 2 years, 5 years?
not that long.
Okay.
I don't think it was more than a year. Yeah.
Has
Okay.
that resulted in any difference that has been noted in some way?
That's a good question. We only completed the signage change out, in
Oh,
a
okay.
gradual
Early.
way. And so I can't tell you for sure that I got statistics from the police chief saying that, we've had this and this change, but he was a big advocate because he said, yeah, we know people are not going to go 25. They're going to go, they're always 5 miles an hour over, but it gives them the basis to do something. Whereas before when it's 30, so going 39, you're still like probably not ticketing quite yet. And that's fast enough to make it quite dangerous,
Yeah.
so just, that worked for us to some extent, I think, anyway. So, and thirdly, love the alpha. That's a great piece there. So, hi, I'm Dan Welsh. I'm with Sustainable Westchester, which is an intermunicipal nonprofit that all the municipalities in Westchester are a part of, except for one. And I run the electricity supply program, so we like to come by on a reasonably regular basis and do an update. So let's just see, is it's going to go page down for me? There we go. Yes, just do a quick overview. If you're talking about electricity, you're always going to brush against what's going on in the energy market. And part of this timing is about thinking about the year and stretching out to where we get to a bid for a new contract, and tell you a little bit about how we're sort of trying to evolve what we're doing in procurement. First of all, we always want to take advantage of this platform to do some general awareness and education stuff. So just a quick community energy 101. The program is obviously at its most basic. It's just a bulk purchasing program, right? It's a collective electricity buy on behalf of the participating municipalities and the residents who are participating. There are 29 municipalities out of the 45 in Westchester that are part of it. And that includes both the Con Ed areas and the NYSEG areas. It's about electricity supply only. So the utilities will always be taking care of the wires and the infrastructure and the billing and all the, the physical needs to get the power to your door. But this is about selecting where you get your power from. And it ultimately ends up being essentially displacing in this case, the NYSEG default supply. Obviously, we're Sustainable Westchester. For us, it's about trying to drive renewable energy uptake and help accelerate that transition to clean energy. We also, very importantly, have a standard supply, which is going to be a less expensive alternative. That's the default for Somers. When we say default, that means for new customers coming in, if you move into the town and you get one of the notification letters, it's going to tell you all about the program and the current contract pricing and what you need to do if you want to opt out or change your supply. But if you don't do anything, you default into the town's default supply. In this case, it's owners, it would be the standard supply. The other key kind of mirror side of that is that it's very consumer friendly in that you can opt out at any time. There's no penalty or anything like that. So it's an opt-out format, but with no no obstacles to just coming in or out at any time. And the program is designed to try and achieve some level of rate stability. I mean, you're always exposed ultimately to the market, but by buying out ahead, we're able to smooth things out and give people a more predictable option versus utility supply, which is always a month-to-month supply. You don't know the price until the end of the month when you pay the bill. In this case, you know what you're getting into. Because it's a fixed rate, you don't have any guarantees of savings because we don't know what the utility price is going to be, and we don't know where ultimately where the market's going to go. You make projections and whatnot, but it does bring you that stability element. And again, it's about, for us, it's about building an infrastructure which allows us to do a lot more with our sustainability goals, whether you're electrifying your transportation or your buildings, you want to have clean energy to feed into that work.
Dan, when does our current contract expire?
Going to get to that. Actually, right here.
There it is.
Yeah. So the current contract, and when we say contract, this is not a contract for the individual resident, again, because you can come in and out anytime. You didn't sign anything like that. It's a contract during which period the supplier is obliged to supply at those rates to anybody who's participating. So this contract started last year in March. It ends at the end of November this year. It ends on your meter read date. So for any given person, it's going to be the first meter read date after November 30th. So it's sometime in December. And the two supply options that I just talked about, the renewable energy price is 10.179 cents, call it 10.2. And the standard supply is 8.7. And again, those were locked in way back in March. Actually, they were locked in during the bidding prior to that. So they're based on, prior eras, and they've served us pretty well over this current contract. We have saved money against the utility ups and downs.
Right.
So that's been a good thing. Not that we're going to sort of get deeply into being, market prognosticators, but just to take a peek, the watchword for what's going on in the markets now is just volatility. It's just been absolutely crazy over this past half year or more. And so that's one thing that we're trying to deal with. And so it's spiked up tremendously over past months, and it's crashed, again, just in the past month or two. It's all driven, it's largely driven by natural gas prices. That's what you're looking at
So,
here.
I mean, just clear that chart. I mean, what am I looking at?
It's the price of natural gas, essentially. And
But you're saying that drives the price.
that drives it
For
because
electricity that we would pay on the market from NYSEG or.
yeah, they're not exactly hooked together, but because the majority of the generators are
Natural
gas driven, or they're actually the kind of the price determiners in the NISO auctions and things like that. So that's where the price is.
Just quickly
set
go
at
back to
this
that
point.
prior slide. I mean, what was that showing? I saw what's the
This,
red line and what's the blue line?
yeah, this is a longer term look at those same prices. I mean, this is just at this point, this is actually the electricity pricing for this past period. So this is price per megawatt hours.
But the red.
And that's actually, and I'm looking at this. This is the LMBP. It's the location-based marginal price of the New York ISO. Call it the electricity market, essentially.
Okay.
Right. It's
Got it.
just to you don't have to know the exact numbers, but it's just to give a sense of the way it's spiking and the volatility. And the same thing on the gas side. So they're pretty well hooked up, although as the gas prices come down now, there are elements which are keeping some of the electricity pricing propped up at the same time. And part of that is the volatility. Part of that is we've lost a little bit of the base load with Indian Point, with coal shutdowns and things like that. So there's a little bit more uncertainty, which the folks who have to reach out into the futures market are dealing with. So it's a combination of things, So when let me see. Okay. So to get another perspective, as we think about that volatility, one thing that we're looking at is sure, we did good in this contract. If you'll recall back, we were kind of anxious about the last contract because we were hanging out for a while above the utility rates, and go way back to the 2016, 17, 18, we did pretty well again. So obviously this is a function of how long are we going out, and how long will we be sort of exposed to the possibility that utility rates will move away and we'll be in a different position. Sometimes we can do well on that, sometimes not. One thing that we're looking at as one possible option to respond to that is to start to move to something where we're still hedging, but we're doing for shorter periods of time, and we're not hanging out as far into the future as we want. So this would be more akin to what maybe a lot of big commercial organizations do, or even the utilities in some sense, and layering on shorter hedges like that.
Just go back to the other chart for a second. That's important, just so the public can understands that the blue lines are essentially the spot rate.
That's the utility average rate.
Average rate. So if you're not under contract, you're paying that rate.
That's right.
And the yellow line is where we are. So
That's
you're paying
the
8.7. So
That's right.
essentially it's tremendous savings. It just happened to be that way. Relative to the spot rate. If you go back earlier in time, we were pretty close as break even, you're saying, because the yellow line and actually
we
we're a little bit more
above.
expensive than the spot.
We were
rate
more
back
expensive in that last period.
Yes.
And then again, back to the first contract, pretty good. So, it's when you go out to bid, you go for a competitive bid, and folks who are bidding are reaching into the futures market as well. And, you're hoping that that's squeezing things down, and they're making a good estimate of where things are going to be. But the factors change, and you just do the best you can. So again, the program, it provides an option to people. It's not guaranteed to save because of this dynamic,
When we originally when you originally conceived the program, it was an aggregation purchase, right? And you were going to get some sort of a discount for aggregating.
Well,
Is that going on these days? With the volatility just has overcome all of that?
yeah, I mean, hopefully it was, going back to 2015 when the program was being assembled. We didn't talk too much about like discounts as much as, you get a competitive rate, but the market is kind of the market. So people always ask me like, well, if we go from, 10,000 customers to 20,000 in a given aggregation, we get X amount of discount. There's probably a level of just, 4,000 or 5,000 accounts where it kind of levels off because everybody's going out again into the same market. And there's not like a bigger discount further out, but you have leverage in terms of the fact that you are using a competitive bidding process to generate, your best rate that you can.
But if a customer is deciding to go to an ESCO, a supplier, and they're going to make that decision, let's say today, you got to look at what the ESCO is going to give you relative to the 8.7.
You're going to have to do your own. Yeah,
do
that's
your
right.
own math.
Today you would look at our current rate and which is still holding up versus the ESCO supply. So if you're trying to, if you've been in NYSEG supply and you're trying to figure out, I'd rather not rather get off the roller coaster. Yeah, you'd compare our fixed rate with what's available. And I think you'll find it's still very favorable, because it was secure.
You would want to take a hard look at that because you can participate and you can opt out at no cost. So, all right, that's.
But some of those other ESCOs, I mean, they have teaser rates, and everyone knows people. They said I was going to pay that, which I did for 3 months.
I had someone call the other day and was talking to them. They were with another ESCO, and I said, and they were wondering what to do. And first of all, I helped them identify that they were with another ESCO, and then they said, well, I said, go look at the last page and see what your rate is, and they're going 0.24. What's that? Well, that's $0.24, which means 24 cents per kilowatt hour, versus like
versus 8 cents or
versus 8 cents.
or 9 cents.
Yeah. So it's tough for people. You got to wade through all that. So,
and there's one other aspect of that when they transition, when the ESCO contract expires, every ESCO has a way for how to handle their renewal, I think, right?
Well, that's actually what happened to this person too. They had some original contract. When the contract ends, you're going on month to month.
Right.
And then it is what it is.
All right. So sorry to diverse from this.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's important because that's part of the value. It's kind of at least you've got some degree of safety and insurance. As our contract's running out, we're going out to bid. We secure a new contract. People are getting a letter in the mail. This is what the new contract's about. It's being announced here. It's going out on social media. They can choose whether they think that's the right place for them to be, but at least, we'll do everything we can for them to be aware of their options.
Well, there's no scam in what you're doing.
No, there is. We are what we are.
Unless you fooled us. Yeah. Now, originally it was called community.
We have been accused of that many times before, but
yes, it was called, if you go back 2015, that was Community Choice Aggregation, CCA, which is now Westchester Power.
Community choice aggregation is the generic term for this kind of program under the Public Service Commission regulations.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cumbersome term, so we try not to throw it around too much. Westchester Power is the program.
Sustainable Westchester Power is part of Sustainable Westchester.
Yes, exactly. It's a program. Like, we have the community solar program, we have the grid rewards, which I'll actually talk about it in a little bit as well. So as I say, just wanted to give some heads up that we are not just sort of sitting and thinking that we're going to do, just the same thing over and over. We want to evolve. We want to develop different tools. We are actually, and I'll go to the next page here. We're working now with a firm called Calpine. Make sure I'm not going to run out of juice here, which is working with many of the CCAs out in California, and they have about a decade and a half of experience. So we're looking to them to kind of glom off some of that experience. We're using their customer management platform, but they are potentially able to help us evolve into those new types of procurement formats by providing a front end as an ESCO. Remember, we have to have an ESCO in the middle to engage in the retail sales, but then giving us more transparency into the back end purchasing and more flexibility in that. So it's not something that's happening today, but I just wanted to let you know that we are doing that kind of work. And if, 3 weeks from now, we come and say, when we go out to bid, we're going to be offering you two options, the traditional fixed rate like we've done, or this kind of layered purchasing, which will keep us, closer to the market and has other advantages to it. In order to do this, we have to submit a implementation plan update, which we've done. We don't know when the DPS, the Department of Public Services, we're going to say, well, you can't do that. You got to do this. And so that's where unknowns can come up. So we have to have some contract modifications to allow for this type of purchasing, and the messaging to residents will get nuanced because we're not being fixed for 2 years. We'll still have an element of stability because we are still hedging ahead like that. But it would be adjusted every 3 months, for example, so that, that's, as I say, is something about the communications challenge there. So normally we sort of do this all based on, or do our renewals based on the backing away from the new contract start date and based on our sort of compliance timelines. We do want to this year see if we can accelerate potentially. The market being down now, if we can go out earlier, maybe we can get some better prices. So this is kind of an alternative accelerated timeline on the right there that we're posting. It is going to, because there are new compliance rules, and I'll get to that on various things where they've actually put together their own opt-out letter, which is driving us crazy because, we've been refining ours for 7 years and all of a sudden they're just handing us.
This is Calpine.
This is DPS, the Department of Public Service. So just saying that there's unknowns as we go through our compliance and our processes to get to the new bid. We're hoping we can accelerate the process, but you never know when there's a little monkey wrench.
So DPS has some governance now over the individual sustainable sort of.
Oh yeah, we have
non-for-profit.
We have milestones. We have to, show that we've done the outreach. We have to do an update there's a master implementation plan. Then there's the municipal aggregation sub plan that has to go in. And as I say, they changed the formats on a lot of things. They went from narrative reports to form-based stuff. So I'm just saying, we hope to accelerate. We don't know when we could run into things that'll still delay us.
Well,
but
the goal is not to have a gap.
For sure. So that's point 2. That's bullet point 2 on the bottom here, which is to say, one, we're seeing if we can go out earlier just because it looks like the market would be a good time to do it. Number 2, though, it gives us more of a buffer than we had last time where we were just, going exactly based on the schedule and the compliance. And then when DPS said, no, we want you to do it this way, all it took was 2 weeks to throw us off the schedule and miss that date. So yes, that's another advantage to trying to accelerate this. If we don't get a good bid or whatever might happen, we can run it again in another 3 weeks from then,
Are you focusing on the renewal period being maybe the seasonally lowest period on an annual basis that maybe history has shown you to be?
Well, it's just
trend.
It's basically we're into what they call the shoulder months now anyway. The market is kind of they're not on edge anymore. They didn't come, they weren't in the middle of the Ukraine war and the uncertainties about gas supply. They've kind of decided that's not a thing anymore. We could get to the summer and just having had a 90-degree day in April, we could have this wicked hot summer and all of a sudden everybody freaks out again and there's another run. currently things are quieted down. So, if you look out there, the at least like the 1.5 year rates look like they probably are a good place to be.
Where are the indicatives now?
The last I saw, they were pretty close to where we are now.
Really, eight,
In our-
8 or 9, 8, 9?
No, not at the 8. I should say that's probably with the recs or without the recs. So it's probably a cent and a half or two higher, yeah, than we are currently.
So
That's correct.
on renewal, I guess the community has to expect this, based on what we're seeing right now, would be higher than what they're paying right now.
That's my guess. That's my guess. Just again, there's still a significant amount of uncertainty out there that's being priced in. So,
Well, this has been almost a tremendous inflation hedge during this period when inflation's gone like
it has been
bonkers.
quite helpful, that's for sure. So on the just a little comment here, on the renewable side, that's a function of the renewable energy certificates that we purchase to zero out our emissions. It's the way the renewable energy is effectively monetized in New York State, and those prices have been going up. The NYSERDA is trying to help a little bit by making some of the other tier RECs that we couldn't access available, increasing the pool. We don't think that's actually going to help on the pricing too much. The current contract, there's like a 1.5 cent or 1.6 cents difference between the standard supply and the green supply. Our longer term goal is to green the power supply in Westchester, and some of the ideas we're working on is direct purchases from developers, bundling in the green attributes, the RECs essentially, and maybe there's an opportunity there to provide something which is of value to that developer, because they don't have to worry about, am I going to make my, is my balance sheet or my P&L going to work next year, given as long as they know it's funded all the way through. So that's in the future, but this new procurement structure that I'm talking about with sort of sleeving and being able to reach into what's going on underneath the hood would also facilitate this. So number one, it's an option if we feel things are really volatile and we don't know where things are going. Number two, it's a structure that could enable some of this kind of direct purchases. And we might even be in a situation where it allows for sort of a phased approach where you've got most of it is still fixed supply, but you're starting to bring in, as you develop a new project and you have a deal with somebody, you bring in that part of supply. This is in the future, but I like to always throw it out so that when opportunities start to develop and we start talking about it, you'll remember I mentioned it.
Oh, I'm sure I will.
Can you broaden the offering to businesses and schools? And
we're actually starting to work hard on that because, on a mission basis, we can't, really claim to have done what we need to do if we're only looking at the residential sector. So for our point, we want to start seeing if we can find an offering for commercial and larger businesses just for the green element, but that would, involve securing a power arrangements as well. So we're now in the midst of talking to different parties that might bring us the tools to do that. It's a different animal. Those are demand meters, and each one has to be done sort of individually based on their own load curves and everything.
You're not prohibited from doing that by the Public Service Commission.
Not really, but it's
the contract's different though. Yeah.
We would essentially be acting as a broker, such as you see out there, an electricity broker, because they wouldn't be falling within the box of the CCA. The CCA rules say this opt-out authority is only within the residential and small commercial area. But for, folks outside that, they would all be opt-in. So effectively, we would be acting sort of in the same vein as a broker who's, like an ESCO, essentially.
Right.
So, I put Dan in contact with folks at the Somers School District.
Yeah.
They were going through their contract renewals. They weren't able to get a rate like 8.7. The idea was, could they piggyback on this?
Yeah, and
this
we,
contract? They couldn't do it because of.
yeah, we went back and forth on that a little bit. And so that is one of the motivators for us to keep working on this and try and come up with something that's provides a benefit to everybody.
But, a school may be a large organization. Where's the line? Like a small business?
It's basically, again, when
Like if
you
you're
go,
in, if you're in
I
a
forget
shopping
that it's
center
like
here.
5 kilowatt or 10 kilowatt demand or something. And then they put you in the demand meter. They put a special meter on, and you are no longer charged just strictly on your kilowatt hours. You've got kilowatt hours plus what is your peak demand times the demand charge. And again, it's based on, each individual commercial entity or large entity will have its own particular sort of load requirements. And
So if you put a level 3 charger in your home for a vehicle, are you bumping up against the limits of the contract in any way? Or are they just kind of overlooked that?
you're not going to, you're going to go up to maybe 50 amps or something maximum in your home. And yeah, they're not going to let you put on some high-speed charger or anything. The line outside your house is probably not going to be able to take it. You probably don't have a transformer there that can
handle
it.
level 3.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So I wouldn't worry about that too much, but we are working on something though. We're just about to start construction over in Mount Kisco at our little office there on my colleague Michelle Delafontaine's Sunshine the EV project, where we're going to put in a high-speed charger, but we're also putting a battery as part of it. And what happens then is the battery is storing energy, and when the charger is making a call, the battery is going to mitigate the high peaks, and that'll keep the cost of that high-speed charger down. And it'd be that model would be useful for, if you want to put on other municipal properties and you want to have a high-speed charger. So, when your future, F-150, electric trucks come in, you want them to be able to charge up in half an hour and go back out, right? So we're working on that side of things.
What town is that?
That's just Mount Kisco, right outside of the police station where our office is.
Okay.
It's going to be fun. They'll start constructing it within like a week or two. So then when we're done, we'll let everybody know. You can come take a look. Important, the DPS came out with some new rules, or the PSC did, and now the DPS, Department of Public Service, who's their operating arm, is fleshing those out. One of them that's very relevant going to be relevant for Somers is that we're now subject to the same rules as the ESCOs were, where there's a little bit more narrow of a box in terms of what we can offer. If it's a renewable product, God forbid, we can charge whatever that ends up being, and that's okay. For standard supply or non-renewable, oh gosh, well, that's all right. I know what I'm saying anyway.
You're done.
If it's non-renewable, and that means any supply that's less than 50% renewable constituency, you have to price it at less. You have to be priced at less than 5% over the trailing past 12-month utility average. So that didn't used to be the case. That's going to cause problems when that trailing average is, obviously low, and you're looking into a market is like, no, things are going up. You're not going to get a price that's going to come in less than that trailing market. Today, we might be okay with that. There was still some little bit of higher pricing if you reach back a little bit. So we may be, we may be okay when we get there, but that's a factor now. If it comes into play, one not solution but option is to go to a 50% renewable product as your default, and then you could stay in and remain in the program and continue to have options for your residents. but that would mean, if recs are 1.5 cents and, and going up, it could be 2 cents. It could be a pennies per kilowatt hour over, what the standard price
And so
would
you
be.
just wouldn't be able to offer that option.
We wouldn't be able to offer a standard
You could
product.
offer renewable.
if
but
we're
you
going out
couldn't
to bid
offer the non-renewable.
What's that?
You couldn't offer the non-renewable. You could offer renewable.
Yeah.
And you're saying if you have.
Renewable,
50
and that would include any product that's at least 50% renewable. So you're buying, in other words, you're buying RECs to cover 50% of your load.
Right.
So that's a thing that's out there now. It's new. We're, a lot of this is just, hot off the press, and we're trying to figure it all out. But those are what we're navigating those things, and we'll see how they hit us or not.
All right, thanks for the update.
Thank you. Dan, thank you so
And
much.
let me just mention one more thing that was going to be on there. Again, this is for us, the supply unto itself is important, but it's also part of kind of a construct where we've got, the solar plugging in. Another program that you may have heard of is going on in Con Ed is the demand response. And that's something that we, again, we're the first in the state to have. It's something that was done on a commercial level for some time, which is to say the utilities, when they run into a peak period and they're scrambling to cover that, they can either switch on these big dirty coal plants, or they can go out into the market and they can say, hey, can you reduce a little bit during this time? And they will pay them to do that. And they pay pretty high charges because those marginal rates are very high. So if you were a big factory or something, you could design your processes to do that and respond to that. But a residential customer couldn't do that. Now they can. We aggregate them through an app that we're working with a firm called Logical Buildings, and people get on the app, they sign up, and maybe 4 or 5 times during the year, there's like a 4-hour peak period. They tell you the day before, you get a signal on your app, and you can do things like pre-cool. So if this is coming and it's like 2 to 6 p.m. and it's a hot day, you could cool down your house to 64 before that, and then shut it down and allow you to kind of ride through and still not be miserable, but help out with this, get paid to do it, and you're actually doing something good environmentally too, because they're not turning on these dirty coal fire plants. So it's an interesting thing. Another way that aggregating and coming together has really benefited. We've been doing it in Con Ed now. It's the 2nd year, but now that our friends in NYSEG are deploying the AMI meters, the digital meters, we anticipate it'll be available for us next year.
What's it called? Demand what?
Well, these are new advanced meters.
No, I know, but the program.
It's demand response. Is a generic term.
You're demanding, responding to
exactly.
circumstances.
Right.
Got it.
Right. And our brand for it is Grid Rewards. But so people can sign up that they're interested in doing this now on our website and everything. But it's just, as I say, I wanted to just demonstrate, emphasize that a lot of these opportunities only come up because we came together to try to do this stuff. Obviously the community solar was a piece we're working on, trying to get opt-out community solar going. It's been a real struggle with the regulatory processes. If that happens, that'll be another great benefit that people will have as well, and it will drive a lot of new renewable construction. So anyway, that's what I got.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Dan.
Thank you.
Always informative.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, let's move right on here. The next one, 4. Yep. Authorize the supervisor to execute. Let's go to number A, the easement documents for the proposed Mitchell subdivision, and B, the proposal for the Gordian for replacement of the flat roof on the town of Somers townhouse in the amount of $46,102.19.
That's this roof up
That's
here.
right
That's
up
this
there,
roof,
right?
roof right up here.
Wow.
Why the difference of the change that you see on there, we're actually keeping the existing windows. They were just replaced a couple years ago, and we're just going to be keeping those as well. I'd like to make a motion to allow the supervisor to execute.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, number 5 here. Combined July 6th, 2023 work session and July 13th, 2023 regular meeting. Do you guys have a preference of which day to combine the 2 days? We've been doing this. We did it last year. I think we go.
We always do it.
You always do, it, right?
Well, you don't want to do it.
I don't, I would say I would probably say July 13th is July 4th week.
Yeah, I mean, when we get there, we'll see if people are here or not. I mean, I
Right.
don't know if I'm doing anything that week yet, but
And
All right,
then-
so, but
all right.
Yeah, July 4th is a Tuesday, so that's real close to
Real close,
Thursday, the
right?
6th.
yeah,
By the way.
I think it's better if we do it later in the month anyway, especially if June, we have 2 meetings. So I'd say July
I'll make
13th.
good. I'll make a motion to combine the 2 to July 13th.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
So move. Number 6, combine August 3rd, 2023 work session and August 10th, 2023 regular meeting.
Same
Go-
thing,
Same thing, go a month later, go August 10th.
sure.
Sure, make a motion to combine it to August 10th.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Great. We have another add on here.
I'm pretty sure we can get all work done that needs to be done. I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
Yes.
All finances that need to be approved, we can approve in
We can-
that
Yep,
And
second,
then-
yes, because there's no change in that.
Okay, and then we have an add-on here, for the execute for the stormwater facility maintenance agreement for our North County Homes 3 Cardinal Way. I'd like to make a motion to approve that.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
So move. Great. Financial, no additional business. Highway, no additional business. Personnel, we do have current vacancies on some of our boards. We have one for the Affordable Housing Board, Parks and Rec Board. We have one for Partners in Prevention, but I think we're going to appoint
yeah.
tonight. Do you
I'd
wanna-
like to make a motion to appoint Margaret Di Lorenzo to one of the 3-year terms ending on 12/31/2025 on the Partners in Prevention Board.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We also have an upcoming vacancy for the Affordable Housing Board as well, ending 7/11/2023. Number 3, out of that, authorize the reappointment of Michelle Sands to the Somers Parks and Recreation Board to a 3-year term ending March 9th, 2026.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And then I'd like to make a motion to authorize the reappointment of John DeMays to the Somers Architectural Review Board to his 3-year term ending March 31, 2026.
Second.
All in
second,
favor?
Aye.
So moved. Planning and engineering, no additional business. Police, no additional business. Consensus agenda 1 through 8. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consensus agenda.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Aye.
And then calendar. May 4th, Town Board Work Session, 7 PM. May 11th, Town Board Regular Meeting, 7 PM as well. June 1st, Town Board Work Session, 7 PM, and June 8th, 7 PM, our Town Board Regular Meeting. We do have some announcements here. We're still calling for all Somers High School students. Parks and Rec is accepting applications for summer day camp counselors. The more counselors that we get, the more campers we're allowed in.
right?
So it's important that hopefully we can get some high school students to help out, that we can allow more people in town to use the facilities and join the camp there. And so if you need an application, please contact, you can go online to somersny.com and click on Parks and Rec box and then scroll down and you'll see the resources there. Keep Somers beautiful. Earth Day weekend, litter cleanup, Saturday, April 22nd, and then Sunday, April 23rd, 9 to 12. Supplies will be here at the Elephant Hotel. And they're doing a cleanup for of course, Earth Day weekend. E-waste recycling day on Saturday, April 22nd. That's 9 to 1 at Somers Intermediate School. And that is $10 per car suggested donation. All proceeds will go to the Somers PTA. Somers Lions Community Pancake Breakfast. It is going to be free, finally back after a number of years. Thank you to our community for supporting the Somers Lions. And that is Sunday, April 23rd. And that's 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Somers High School cafeteria. That is the old cafeteria that's always been in. Pancakes, egg sausage, and then the Lions famous Egg McLion.
4 years in the making.
4 years in the making.
That's baking.
Arbor Day celebration presented by the Somers Land Trust, a talk for award-winning author Tony Hiss. We heard one of the gentlemen mention that he was going to be here. Sunday, April 23rd, right here at the Somers Townhouse, and that starts at 2 p.m. Medication Take Back Day, sponsored by the Somers Partners in Prevention, Somers Police Department, and Drug Crisis in Your Backyard. Saturday, April 29th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Somers Police Department, 100 Primrose Street, Route 139. Safely dispose of your unused expired medication. Vapes, e-cigarettes are accepted. Sharps are not accepted. Bring a non-perishable item to donate to St. Luke's as well. So they're also doing a donation for St. Luke's.
Non-perishable item,
Food item,
Food.
non-perishable food
Yeah.
item. Westchester County Mobile Shredder coming to Somers, and that is going to be May 23rd, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Reese Park. The 7th Annual Charity Car Show honoring the veterans in memory of Louis DeMarco, sponsored by Portland Landscaping and Leewood Beverage Center. That'll be Sunday, June 11th, 9 to 3, Somers Intermediate School. Registration starts at registration time is 9 to 11, and the registration fee is $20. And you'll get a free entry bag for the first 125 cars. Again, Town of Somers Independence Day celebration, Sunday, June 24th, Reese Park. And the rain date will be Sunday, June 25th. Should be our backyard barbecue. And then we also volunteers needed for the Town of Somers Veterans Committee is looking for volunteers to help. You can contact Kate O'Keefe and her, I'll give you her email address, KATOOKEEFE@gmail.com. That is all I have for tonight. Anybody have anything else they want to say before we close out the night?
One quick thing to all the Rangers fans out there. Let's go Rangers. They're winning. They're leading the series 1-0 with apparently a tie in the second game.
My daughter's a Devils fan.
Sorry to hear that.
Excuse me, I have a fun fact.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Ah.
Do you think I was so busy? I know you know I was so busy today, but
Yes, you were busy. Actually, you.
there
Smart.
is a fun fact.
What is the fun fact for the day?
Yankees.
Happy birthday to our one and only Donnie Baseball. He's 62 today.
Very nice.
Oh.
Yeah, baseball. Happy birthday, Donnie Baseball.
Those who are not up
I-
on their baseball, I'm Manningly.
Hmm.
We had
I didn't know what I was talking about that year.
Pete Rose and Donnie Baseball.
That's right.
One
Pete
month.
Rose and Donnie- Yes, it's pretty good.
Rose is what, 82?
So if nobody has anything else, I'd like to make a motion to close our regular meeting here on Thursday, April 20th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.